bro, look at Tucker's face. I don't know if he probably didn't expect this. I don't know if he's really that delusional that he thought Putin would fall for this fucking easy to dispute anti-China propaganda. Putin destroys this man. And you can almost see where Putin kind of realized, like, all right, this dude is not what Russian media hyped him to be. Because I'm going to show you guys the next clip where Putin calls out Tucker Carlson for wanting to join the CIA. You know the thing that me and Misty Winston, big shout out to Misty from TNT Radio. Me and Misty, like, do you guys know Tucker Carlson wanted to join the CIA? Anyone who wanted to join the CIA is kind of fucking shady. And Putin mentions that. And that's going to be the next clip.
Illegitimate sanctions, illegitimate in terms of the Charter of the United Nations. One should think very carefully. For decision makers, this appears to be a problem.
Really well, that's a great point about Putin. I'm going to show this clip because as I said on Twitter, I said Putin clowning Tucker Carlson for wanting to join the CIA is one of the most underrated parts in the interview. And I would personally say it's probably one of my favorite moments of this year, early already. And this is why the West never shows Putin talking. I said that many times before. Because not only is Putin smart, he has a great sense of humor. Like I listen to a lot of Putin speeches. He does like round tables and these press conferences where he's just talking to people. He be riffing with people and he would like have the entire crowd laughing. Like he's a politician. Like to be honest. Like he's an actual skilled politician. He knows how to make people laugh. He knows how to get under the skin of people who are being aggressive against him. There's a reason why this guy has an 80% plus approval rating in Russia. Now, this is a longer clip where he's talking about the history, which is why another reason why I want to show it. But listen to the beginning where Putin calls out Tucker Carlson for wanting to join the CIA.
As the Americans requested, Yanukovych did use neither the armed forces nor the police, yet the armed opposition committed a coup in Kiev. What is that supposed to mean? Who do you think you are? I wanted to ask the then U.S. leadership.
With the backing of whom?
With the backing of CIA, of course. The organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand.
Fucking roasted. You know the organization you tried to join back in the day? I talked to Zoya. I wish I had Zoya on the stream with me because Zoya, you guys know my dear sister Zoya. Zoya's love, Zoya's life. She speaks Russian, and she said if you actually heard the Russian version of this, it's like Putin roasted Tucker Carlson way harder. You guys want to hear that part again? He's like, yeah. And Tucker, like, who did this plot to overthrow the Ukrainian government? He like, you know, the organization that you signed up with, the CIA boy, you little CIA boy. So Putin is the head of state of one of the most powerful countries in the world, but he knew that Tucker Carlson was a CIA boy. That was something that Putin knew beforehand. How did he know that? Did he look that up? Did he get a briefing about how Tucker Carlson wanted to be part of the CIA? Because there was a point that me and Misty Winston bring up all the time. Anyone who want to be part of the CIA is shady. I'm going to play that part again because I think it's funny. And then they're going to get into the history of it because this is the clip. Once again, big shout out to Hotspot. You guys should follow them. The actual clip is about how Putin explains the war in Ukraine is the result of what the CIA started in 2014. So I was watching this clip. I was watching what Hotspot is doing because you guys know Hotspot's killing Hotspot is killing the goddamn game. Yeah, Zoya does because Zoya told us. She told me that the Russian version is even spicier. So I'm taking her word for it with how Putin roasted him. The English translation doesn't do it justice. So I was watching this clip trying to see what Putin is saying about the CIA. And I heard that gem in the beginning. That's why I said, bro, why no one talking about the fact that Putin just fucking roasted Tucker Carlson to his face about joining the CIA? It's probably after he heard his bullshit opinions about China. You guys see that Putin knew about the fact that Tucker Carlson wanted to join the CIA, right? So That means Putin and his team did some sort of research into Tucker Carlson. If he knows that means he also must have saw the rhetoric that Tucker Carlson said about China, the country that he view as brothers. Russia has a very close relationship with China, so they probably seen what Tucker says about China. So Putin probably like, yeah, this motherfucker is CIA. He probably think like, I'm glad that Tucker gets the issue with Ukraine right, but this motherfucker is definitely CIA. If you hear that bullshit he's saying about China. So from what I've seen, this is why the meltdown over the Putin interview was ridiculous. Because I didn't see Putin having that much respect for Tucker. Especially after knowing Tucker's opinion about China, a country that he deeply respects. So this is a longer video. I'm going to let a lot more of this play because it's very educational. I just want you guys to see the beginning again. It's my favorite part of the interview where he calls out Tucker for being CIA. But I'm going to let a lot more of the video continue. Don't worry.
As the Americans requested, Yanukovych did use neither the armed forces nor the police, yet the armed opposition committed a coup in Kiev. What is that supposed to mean? Who do you think you are? I wanted to ask the then U.S. leadership.
With the backing of whom?
With the backing of CIA, of course. The organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand. We should thank God they didn't let you in. Although it is a serious organization. I understand. My former vis-a-vis in the sense that I served in the first main directorate, Soviet Union's intelligence service. They have always been our opponents. A job is a job. Technically, they did everything right. They achieved their goal of changing the government. However, from political standpoint, it was a colossal mistake. Surely it was political leadership's miscalculation. They should have seen what it would evolve into. So,
come on, Internet, you can do it.
Large-scale military operation, then another one.
Before I let it continue, this is a longer clip, so I want a lot of this to play for you guys. But this is exactly why they didn't want this interview to happen. This interview is devastating for the West because for the first time, you're going to have a very large amount of the Western audience, in fact, probably the entire world because how big this interview is, that will hear the Russian narrative uncensored.
When they failed, they started to prepare the next one. All this against the background of military development of this territory and opening of NATO's doors. How could we not express concern over what was happening? From our side, this would have been a culpable negligence. That's what it would have been. It's just that the U.S. political leadership pushed us to the line we could not cross, because doing so could have ruined Russia itself.
I'm going to let it continue, but man, this is so huge, man. You guys know how I feel about Tucker. I shit on Tucker, but this is real journalism that was dead. It doesn't matter how we feel about Tucker. The fact that he did this and gave Putin a platform to correct this, to correct the record, is huge. I just explained with Garland Nixon on Tuesday, another banger, that we need to humanize our enemies. We need to change the culture of what it means to be anti-imperialist and anti-war. We need to stop normalizing soldiers dying in war. We need to stop normalizing parents sending their children out to die in war. And we also need to humanize our enemies. The Bernie left is completely ineffective, and they are empire puppets because they would claim they don't like war, but they believe everything that the government tells them about Putin. These same Bernie people, they call themselves socialists, but they also hate China. They believe every negative thing about China, these social democrats. They smear Venezuela. You have Bernie Sanders called Nicolas Maduro a tyrant for having the audacity of not allowing the United States to overthrow his government. Bernie Sanders called Nicolas Maduro a tyrant, and then they wonder why their anti-war pleas falls on deaf ears. It is very important for us to humanize our enemies. I am not asking you guys to like Putin. I am not asking you guys to like Xi Jinping, but we must humanize our enemies because it undercuts the war propaganda. When you have the progressives, when you have Bernie Sanders, when you have all these people condemning Hamas, telling people that Hamas is evil, that undercuts the message that we should have a ceasefire against these people. You guys know at RBN, we never condemn Hamas. I will never condemn a group of people fighting the most violent, genocidal, fascist regime that we've seen in modern history. I will never condemn people for fighting against fucking tyranny, ever. But if you are a part of the Bernie Sanders left that condemn Hamas, your argument about not going to war with them falls on deaf ears if you're out there telling people that they're evil terrorists. This is why the anti-war movement have been ineffective in America, because they'll say we don't want war, but then they believe that Saddam Hussein and all these people are evil. We need to humanize people, and we need to humanize our enemy and explain to people why they are doing what they're doing. The West does their best not to do that. It is commonplace for people to say that Putin wants to take over Ukraine. Democrats said we must fund the border bill that we call Trump racist for, because if we don't stop Putin in Ukraine, he then's going to go to Europe and take over Europe. It's one of the most insidious lies I ever heard in corporate media. Because Putin and the Russian government said many times before what this war is about. And he's going to explain in this interview but what denazification was, their ass was. They wanted a neutral Ukraine. They wanted Ukraine to recognize the independence of the Donbass region and many of these Eastern Ukrainian regions that wanted to leave the fascist regime in Ukraine that overthrew a democratically elected government. Russia didn't want to take over these countries. They wanted to give them a referendum to become independent, and they wanted to promise that Ukraine would become a NATO country. But on every single Western media channel, they will tell you that Russia is on the path to conquest. They do that because they purposely misrepresent the enemy so you will hate them. It's the same reason, it's the same way. They keep telling you that Hamas is an organization that hates Jewish people, even though Hamas leadership, including the Hamas chapter in 2017, said that their struggle has nothing to do with Jewish people. They say they do not hate Jewish people at all. They say they see the difference between Jewish people who oppose apartheid and the Israeli Zionist fascist state that is subjugating their people. Hamas makes that distinction so very clear. But meanwhile, in the West, they keep saying that Hamas hates Jews. You guys see how it's extremely important for them to control the narrative of what their enemies are saying? That's why it's very important for us to humanize our enemies. And that's why I give Tucker Carlson props for doing this interview, despite all the problems I have with him. But I'll let it continue because this is a great history lesson. I went on a long rant, so I'll shut the fuck up for a while. I'll let you guys watch the interview for a while. I'll go back a little bit.
Besides, we could not. How could we not express concern over what was happening? From our side, this would have been a culpable negligence. That's what it would have been. It's just that the US political leadership pushed us to the line we could not cross, because doing so could have ruined Russia itself. Besides, we could not leave our brothers in faith, in fact, a part of Russian people, in the face of this war machine.
What was but that was 8 years before the current conflict started. So what was the trigger for you? What was the moment where you decided you had to do this?
Initially, it was the coup in Ukraine that provoked the conflict. By the way, back then the representatives of 3 European countries, Germany, Poland, and France, arrived. They were the guarantors of the signed agreement between the government of Yanukovych and the opposition. They signed it as guarantors. Despite that, the opposition committed a coup, and all these countries pretended that they didn't remember that they were guarantors of the peace.
This is exactly why the establishment did not want this interview to happen. How many propaganda reports have we done on this show? And whenever I show you guys clips of Morning Joe, Fox News, I see the comments. You guys cringe so hard like we do. It's unbelievable to see the news that we get in our country. This interview Tucker Carlson has done, take every single thing Tucker Carlson has done, all his work aside, this one interview is more substantive than anything anyone in mainstream media has ever done. Sure. No, I know they're not our enemies, friends. I see you guys comment sometimes. They're not my enemy. I admire China in a lot of ways. They're not my enemies at all. I'm saying when I say our enemies, I mean like the establishment, the enemies of the United States. You guys know I barely view myself as American. I'm a extreme outsider in this country, and I'm very happy about it. So when I say I'm not associating myself with our state, like I don't have no problem with them. But anyway, I think I just want to set the record straight on that. I'm gonna let it continue more, but we only a few minutes in this part, but you're getting way more history and way more knowledge than anything you will see on corporate media, in print media as well. And those same partisan hacks pretending to be journalists, they mock the idea that Tucker is a journalist when Tucker is delivering gold to us right now with this interview with Putin. The fact that Putin called him out for wanting to be CIA, gold. The fact that Putin called him out for China, gold. That's good because Tucker is doing an act of journalism, which is rare in the West. Despite how we feel about him, we just got to call it what it is. Let's continue.
Settlement.
Никто не вспоминает.
They just threw it in the stove right away, and nobody recalls that. I don't know if the US know anything about the agreement between the opposition and the authorities and its three guarantors who, instead of bringing this whole situation back in the political field, supported the coup. Although it was meaningless, believe me, because President Yanukovych agreed to all conditions. He was ready to hold an early election, which he had no chance of winning, frankly speaking. Everyone knew that. Then why the coup? Why the victims? Why threatening Crimea? Why launching an operation in Donbass? This I do not understand. That is exactly what
that operation in the Donbass, the fact that 14,000 plus Russian Ukrainians, ethnic Russian Ukrainians was killed by their own government is a fact that is never covered in the media. They pretend this war started when Russia invaded Ukraine. You can make the argument that Russia got involved in a civil conflict. This is gold. I'll let it continue. You guys see how educational this is? It's great. Let's continue.
The miscalculation is CIA did its job to complete the coup. I think one of the deputy secretaries of state said that it cost a large sum of money, almost 5 billion. But the political mistake was colossal. Why would they have to do that? All this could have been done legally, without victims, without military action, without losing Crimea. We would have never considered to even lift a finger if it hadn't been for the bloody developments on Maidan. Because we agreed with the fact that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, our borders should be along the borders of former Union's republics. We agreed to that. But we never agreed to NATO's expansion, and moreover, we never agreed that Ukraine would be in NATO. We did not agree to NATO bases there without any discussion with us. For decades, we kept asking, don't do this, don't do that. And what triggered the latest events? Firstly, the current Ukrainian leadership declared that it would not implement the Minsk agreements, which had been signed, as you know, after the events of 2014 in Minsk, where the plan of peaceful settlement in Donbass was set forth. But no, the current Ukrainian leadership, foreign minister, all other officials, and then president himself said that they don't like anything about the Minsk agreements. In other words, they were not going to implement it. A year or a year and a half ago, former leaders of Germany and France said openly to the whole world that they indeed signed the Minsk agreements, but they never intended to implement them. They simply led us by the nose.
Was there anyone?
This information, I cannot stress enough, you will never get in mainstream corporate media as a mock Tucker Carlson for being a fake journalist. This is why they will never have him on, This is why they would never interview him, because they completely ignored the Minsk Accords and everything that led up to this. But I'll let it continue. This is just great stuff. I hope you guys enjoying. Let's continue.
Anyone for you to talk to? Did you call a U.S. President, Secretary of State, and say, if you keep militarizing Ukraine with NATO forces, this is going to be we're going to act?
Мы постоянно об этом говорим. Мы постоянно об этом говорим. Мы обращались
We talked about this all the time. We addressed the United States and European countries' leadership to stop these developments immediately, to implement the Minsk agreements. Frankly speaking, I didn't know how we were going to do this, but I was ready to implement them. These agreements were complicated for Ukraine. They included lots of elements of those Donbas territories' independence. That's true. However, I was absolutely confident, and I'm saying this to you now. I honestly believe that if we managed to convince the residents of Donbas, and we had to work hard to convince them to return to the Ukrainian statehood, then gradually the wounds would start to heal. When this part of territory reintegrated itself into common social environment, when the pensions and social benefits were paid again, all the pieces would gradually fall into place. No, nobody wanted that. Everybody wanted to resolve the issue by military force only.
Loving this.
But we could not let that happen. And the situation got to the point when the Ukrainian side announced, no, we will not do anything. They also started preparing for military action. It was they who started the war in 2014.
It is they who started the war in 2014. Exactly what we've been telling you guys on RBN since this has started. This interview is absolutely devastating to the West. This interview just absolutely silenced and fucking destroyed every single neocon, anti-Russia warmonger. And this interview is not going away. Hold up. Let's see what the number. I saw earlier that Tucker had like 15 million views in like only like a few seconds. I mean, only a few minutes. Let's see. What is that right now? Oh, Jesus Christ. 38 million impressions on Twitter alone. Once again, not fucking YouTube and everything else. So this interview is going nowhere. In fact, as people listen to this, and as people like, bro, you got people gonna start sharing it. People in China gonna start sharing it. You're gonna have people in Ukraine probably gonna see it because their government fear-mongering over it. You're gonna have people in the global South gonna see it. You're gonna have people in Brazil see it. Everyone gonna see this shit. People in the UK gonna see it. All these people all the NATO leftists gonna see this. Everyone who was NATO left, their politics was destroyed and their credibility ruined over the last few years because they look like asses right now. I can't wait to, I'm still unpacking this interview with you guys. I can't wait to see the global ramifications of this. I may do a segment live at the end of this where we may look at some reaction because it's still a baby fresh news story here. This interview, it dropped like maybe 2-3 hours before my stream. So this is going to be, I may be over optimistic is one of the things that is my flaw. I tend to be over optimistic about stuff. You know what I mean? But I do think this is going to be huge because liberal media almost buried themselves. They dug their own grave with how they hyped this up. The way they was freaking out about this interview made it so even their own viewers are expecting them to respond in some way. Like, you can't say that this is going to be the worst interview ever. This is so dangerous, and then you don't cover it at all.